As Donald Trump returns to the White House again, his second term will likely be defined by a host of daunting domestic challenges. Chief among them will be tackling a still struggling economy where inflation and sluggish growth demand urgent action. Trump's tight immigration policies could disrupt the labor market, while his stance on border security remains a flashpoint. On the domestic front, healthcare and social security reform will be in the spotlight as his administration seeks to reshape these crucial systems. As Wall Street anticipates another round of his signature policies, the question looms: can Trump turn his promises into lasting progress? All of this and more on Think Tank. Stay tuned.
We can fix every single problem our country faces and lead America, and indeed the whole world. USA! This is a magnificent victory for the American people. Promises made, promises kept. We're going to keep our promises. Nothing will stop me from keeping my word to you, the people. We will make America safe, strong, prosperous, powerful, and free again.
A second Trump presidency could bring significant change to the United States, with potential policies including sweeping tariffs on imports, mass deportation, and a rollback of climate regulations. The Washington Post reported that the return of Trump, who is known for his controversial first term, to office comes after 2 impeachments and a state criminal conviction. According to the newspaper, his agenda promises to shake up the nation's political and economic landscape, focusing on strengthening borders, reducing environmental restrictions, and tightening control over dissent, likely deepening the country's divisions. Donald Trump has outlined an ambitious second-term agenda, promising the largest deportation of and education systems. Politico reported that Trump insiders believe his second term will see faster progress, armed with lessons learned from his first term, where bureaucratic delays often hampered his goals. Many of his proposals, such as changes to immigration enforcement tariffs and health regulations, don't require congressional approval. Trump also plans to overhaul federal agencies by converting up to 50,000 civil servant positions into political appointments. With support from allies like Elon Musk, who promises $2 trillion in budget cuts, Trump aims to fundamentally reshape United States governance and policy. And as Donald Trump returns back to office, he faces a nation divided by economic instability and political unrest. How he navigates these challenges will reshape America's future. For more analysis, we are joined by Mrs. Irina Tuskerman, a political researcher from California, and Peter Tanis, an economic expert from Washington. A very warm welcome to our program.
Thank you.
Mr. Tanis, what key factors tipped the balance in favor of Trump and ultimately led to his victory in this presidential election?
Several things did. One is the inflation that American consumers felt. Now, in the aggregate, inflation has come down to pretty much to where it was before COVID. But what Americans remember is what things cost them at the supermarket. They remember that buying cereal now costs $2 or $3 more per box than it used to. And that is inflation to them, not the aggregate statistics. The other thing is one that you mentioned, which is immigration. Uh, Americans are very upset at the huge number of illegal immigrants that have come into the country, and they blame the Democrats for that. Trump has promised to deport the illegal immigrants.
Sorry, I
Uh,
don't mean to interrupt you, but are you with the idea of deporting the immigrants?
uh,
Are you happy about this?
let me be precise.
Please.
Deport illegal immigrants that have police records or are criminals, I am very happy with, and I think, and almost all Americans are happy with that too. And that is what essentially Trump has promised. Mass deportation doesn't work. I mean, it's almost impossible to do. But if you can identify those with criminal records, which pretty much can, and deport them, nobody's going to have a problem with that.
So, sir, it's very specific and concise and to the point. It's the illegal immigrants that he wants them out of the United States with criminal records.
Precisely.
Okay, I got your point, sir. Ms. Tuskerman, what are Trump's plans for enhancing southern border security?
In the past, he touted the idea of a border wall. Needless to say, a border wall alone is not going to be sufficient. First of all, because the borders are huge and porous, and it would take billions of dollars to secure all of them properly. And second, because any wall can be breached in various ways. So what that actually translates in practice is that you need a combination of methods. You need physical security. You need border agents who are also not corrupt. They're properly vetted. And you also need satellite imagery showing the flow, the human flow into the country and showing where the most accumulation happens and where the most breaches happens. All of these things are doable, but the plans for them need to be realistic, and it's going to take time to do all of that. It took a long time to secure even parts of the borders in the past, and
Why
that's
do you
going to
think
be
they're
a
going to take time?
problem.
Why do you think they're going to take time?
Because the borders are very large, and even building a physical infrastructure is going to take some time, as it has in the past. It also takes time to hire new employees, to vet them properly, to understand where most of these breaches happen, and to be able to figure out how to take satellite imagery and how to get all of these three functions working together. But that's only part of security. This sort of gathering of information and creating infrastructure is one part. The other part is what to do with the people who are already there and who are coming in on a daily basis. How to enhance the processes for deporting them. How to have sufficient numbers of judges in place. How to secure the facilities for holding those who are eligible
Okay, I
for
think he has a
review.
lot on his plate. Mr. Tanis, how might Trump's approach to the Federal Reserve affect monetary policy, sir?
Well, fortunately, the Federal Reserve is independent. And as much as Trump would like to control the Federal Reserve because he likes to control everything, that is not
Sir, are
going
you
to happen.
happy with the new president of the United States, Donald Trump?
Say again.
Are you happy with Donald Trump as the new president of the United States?
Personally, no.
You're not.
I supported Harris for all the reasons that we have discussed several times. So the answer to your question is, am I happy? And the answer is no.
Okay, continue, sir, about the policies that we were discussing.
We want to talk about the Federal Reserve?
Yes, please.
Federal Reserve is meeting today and tomorrow, and they will likely reduce interest rates by 0.25%. Obviously, Trump will be happy about that because he's been elected president already. He wasn't happy when they reduced interest rates before he became president because he thought it was a gift to the Democrats. Well, it didn't turn out that way. But that's what's going to happen now. The inflation is under control. The Federal Reserve is going to reduce interest rates, which will serve as a boost to the economy, and nobody's going to be upset about that.
Okay, Ms. Tuskerman, how will Trump approach reconciliation among diverse American communities?
Quite frankly, that process is probably out of his hands. The best he can do,
Everything is out of his
hopefully,
hands, apparently.
in the sense that it's a long political process, and one person can't control years of rhetoric, which he contributed to quite significantly, but that also includes problematic rhetoric and actions from the other side. Stop with the provocative, heated rhetoric and personal attacks on his opponents, whether inside or outside the party. He could put an end to amplifying false narratives and disinformation, and he could try to act in good faith and to consider the interests and concerns of those citizens who did not vote for him. Those things, that showing that kind of good faith and showing that kind of interest in other people's concerns, I think would go a long way towards setting an example and inspiring more positive actions from others.
Okay, Mr. Tanis, what challenges could arise from Trump's plans to cut federal spending?
Sorry, I'm sorry. Say again, Rena.
Sir, what challenges could arise from Trump's plans to cut federal spending?
Well, he doesn't have any plans to cut federal spending. In fact, all his policies, most economists figured out, his policies will increase the deficit if he gets them through. Now, the most important thing right now is the fact that the House races are still going on, and we don't know if the Republicans or the Democrats are going to control the House of Representatives. The Republicans have already won the Senate. If they control the House as well, it will be a lot easier to pass legislation for the Republicans. But most of Trump's policies that he talked about during the campaign, including putting tariffs on everything that comes into the United States, are pretty crazy. And hopefully they won't happen. Although I should point out that the president has a lot of discretion when it comes to imposing tariffs.
Okay, sir, Ms. Tuskerman, how might mass deportation impact the U.S. economy?
I don't think they necessarily will impact them all that much in the near term, because all of that is going to take a long time. It's a lengthy process. You need to identify those migrants who are primarily eligible for deportation, people with criminal records first, second, people who violated deportation orders previously, and so forth. So all of that is going to take to come in phases, but the idea is that it's going to take economic burden of communities struggling to integrate the non-criminal migrants and the families and legal migrants as well, and ease up the resources to be able to help the people in need, both Americans and newly arrived.
Okay, Mr. Tanis, again, how might Trump's immigration policies influence labor supply and wages?
Well, obviously, the idea of a mass deportation would be very disruptive of the labor markets, because many of these immigrants, mostly legal and some illegal, are doing work that Americans aren't going to be prepared to do. And they will be very, very hard to replace. Remember, the unemployment rate in the United States is still very low at about 4%. So there's not a lot of workers out there who could replace.
Sir, you're discussing the unemployment rate now as we talk?
Say again?
We are discussing the unemployment rate now as we talk.
Yeah, that's just what I just said. The unemployment
Okay, this
rate is.
is during the Biden administration. And before the Biden administration was Donald Trump, and there was the COVID-19. So maybe it hurled him and was an obstacle that faced him at that point. Do you think this or not?
No, I'm not sure about that, Rena. The fact is that the unemployment rate has been very low now for many, many years, which is a sign of a good economy. And many of the jobs that we talked about, that you asked about, that are being done by immigrants, some illegal, would be very difficult to replace, particularly farm jobs in areas like California and other places. So it is clear that the idea of mass deportations is neither practical nor useful, but starting with, as we said before, deporting those with criminal records, nobody's going to have a problem with that.
Okay, before we continue, let's take a look at this report about Trump's second term, the challenges ahead. Stay with us, and we'll be back again to continue our discussion, please.
As Donald Trump secures a second time in the White House, he faces a landscape of formidable domestic challenges. The economy, still reeling from inflationary pressures, demands immediate attention. Trump's plan to stimulate growth through protectionist policies and tariffs risks further economic turbulence, potentially exacerbating inflation rather than curbing it. On the immigration front, Trump's hardline stance promises to reshape the labor market. His proposed crackdown on illegal immigration and enhanced border security measures could significantly impact industries reliant on immigrant workers. The nation's deep political divide presents another hurdle. Trump must navigate a polarized electorate, seeking strategies to bridge the gap between his fervent supporters and vehement critics. This task is crucial for advancing his agenda on fostering national unity. Healthcare and Social Security reform loom large on Trump's agenda. His administration faces the complex task of overhauling the healthcare system while addressing concerns about the sustainability of Social Security programs. As Trump embarks on his next presidency, these intertwined challenges will test his leadership and policy-making skills. The success of his presidency may well hinge on his ability to balance competing interests and deliver on his promises while maintaining economic stability and social cohesion.
And we continue our discussion with, of course, Mr. Tanis. Mr. Tanis?
Yeah, Rena.
Sir, what measures does Trump plan to implement to combat inflation?
Yeah, good question. I don't
Thank
think
you,
we
sir.
know. Yeah, it's a really good question because none of them are very obvious. For one thing, as I mentioned earlier, the inflation rate is really very low, which is why the Fed is reducing interest rates. So there's not much he needs to do to combat inflation. Grocery prices are probably a significant factor about why Harris lost, because that is inflation to the American consumer. It's when she goes to the grocery store and is shopping and remembers what things cost a couple of years ago. But in the aggregate, inflation has come down tremendously.
Oh, true, sir. Sir, and I move on now to Ms. Tushkerman. What changes to healthcare are expected under Trump's second term?
I think it's very unlikely that there are going to be sweeping changes to healthcare. For one thing, Trump currently does not have a plan, nor is it a priority for him based on his own campaign. He prioritized other things, and even during debate, he discussed a concept, but he didn't discuss a fully formed plan. And during his first term, when he had a chance, when he had a majority of Republicans in both houses of the Congress, they failed to really come up with a major alternative to Obamacare. At best, we will see some minor reforms to the existing plan, or maybe another plan will emerge over time. But at the moment, this is clearly not a priority, and also clearly not something that he or his team have worked on.
Mr. Tanis, what are the potential economic consequences of Trump's protectionist trade policies?
Oh, Rena, in one word, I would say disastrous. Because if, and I don't think they're going to happen. Trust me, better minds will prevail.
I trust you, sir, but why don't you think they're going to happen?
Because they are really potentially disastrous. Let's talk about his comment that he was going to impose a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States.
True, sir.
50% tariff on everything that it's to our advantage. Number one, because they may be more efficiently produced and cheaper than goods that we can make here. His idea that we're going to impose these huge tariffs would actually have a detrimental effect on the economy because, among other things, number one, our trading partners would all retaliate. And number two, it would make most of the items we import more expensive. So it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, sir. Okay, again, sir, what economic consequences could result from Trump's immigration stance, sir? Mr. Tanis, you didn't hear the question, right?
All right, that was not, was that for me?
Yes. What economic consequences could result from Trump's immigration stance, sir?
Well, the good news is that we all want to stop illegal immigration into the country. And your other guest talked about some measures that are being taken to do that. More enforcement on the border, more other means to do that. But
Okay,
then,
sir. I just want before wrapping up this this episode, I just want to take advantage of asking you both a question, Mr. Peter and Miss Irina. Of course, we have been discussing throughout the episode the domestic issues of the United States and how Donald Trump is going to be handling them. How do you think, from your own perspective and your take and motto on the international domain, the wars, Ukraine, Gaza, Lebanon, what do you think Trump's going to be doing towards these countries?
who do you want to answer first?
Yes, please.
Are you asking me, Irina?
Both of you, sir. You can answer, sir.
Okay. First of all, on the international front, there's a lot to be concerned about. Let's talk first about Ukraine. It is possible that Trump will be willing to make a deal with Russia to stop the Ukraine war that will be very disadvantaged to Ukraine, and they will have to give up territory. On the Middle East, also very dangerous. I'm personally very involved in Lebanese American relationships and very concerned about what's happening in Lebanon. We want a ceasefire in Lebanon.
Do you think Trump is going to be part of this very important ceasefire at this time and can convince Benjamin Netanyahu?
I'm very concerned about that because
you're concerned. So you're underlining this, sir. You're not 100% sure it's going to happen.
No, I'm very concerned about it. Remember, Trump is the one who said to Netanyahu.
I remember very well, sir. Ms. Irina, do you have your final words, please, in 10 seconds, because I have to wrap up?
Absolutely. I think Trump is a man of deals, but I don't think he'll be able to cut a deal with Russia, even at the expense of Ukraine, because Russia wants all of Ukraine. It doesn't want deals, and it made so clear in a recent statement through its
perfect on the Middle East level. What do you think is going to be happening?
Trump already informed Netanyahu to wrap up operations in Gaza and Lebanon before the inauguration, but I also don't think that's going to work. Hamas has not yet released the hostages, shows no intention of doing so, and Hezbollah continues firing at Israel, so it will continue with its operations even if it means facing pressure from the United States.
Okay, on this final note, we thank you both our guests. That was Miss Irina Tuskerman, a political expert from California, and Peter Tansen, an economic expert from Washington. Of course, we thank you so much, both of you, for your insightful and informative knowledge. That brings us to the end of today's episode of Think Tank. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at QNewsEG to stay informed. For real-time updates, connect with us on UMS digital platform. Watch it. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more coming up here on Q News.